Homes are selling below list price. That's bad for sellers, good for buyers. I saw something, according to USA Today, Redfin found that fewer than one third of homes, 32%, sold over list price.
I saw that remember the whole opening Olympics? That was weird.
You know what? It's unfortunate that overshadowed everything
Yeah.
because that was one moment. And then
Right.
the rest of it has been amazing. It's been great. It's been great sportsmanship from each country.
That's
Haven't really
good.
seen a lot of salty moments.
3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Welcome back to the Full Count podcast. We will be talking about Trump versus Harris presidential election and how that affects the financial markets and the real estate markets, because as we all know, we love to cover real estate and current affairs.
All right, we have a lot of things that there's so many things in America, in the world to talk about right now. I say the world because there's so many events, but there's a big event going on where there's a lot of country pride. I'm rocking the Olympics Paris apparel. I have an insider into that network, so I was able to squeeze one of those. All right, we have a lot of things in America, in the world to talk about right now. I say the world because there's so many events, but there's a big event going on where there's a lot of country pride. I'm rocking the Olympics Paris apparel. I have an insider into that network, so I was able to squeeze one of those out of them. Lots of full count moments during the Olympics. These Americans were flawless except for 2 moments, and they happened at the beginning of their routine. Jordan Childs did a somersault to get on this balance beam when most people in the world couldn't even walk on the balance beam. She missed that, went and nailed the rest of her routine perfectly. Can you imagine that moment? You go do a somersault, you miss it onto the balance beam, and now think about all the thoughts that would come into your head. These thoughts of everybody's watching me, what are people saying? I can do this perfect every time in practice, but when we get here, now this is happening. Everybody's judging me. She has to block all of those thoughts out and just do what she knows how to do, which is kill. Same thing happened with one of the other.
And that's probably the hardest thing you can do.
Exactly. How do you block out those thoughts and just perform? And she did. And with the performance of all of them as a team, they brought home the gold. So big shout out to the U.S. women's gymnastics team for embracing a full count moment. One thing that I'm really proud of at this podcast is we've never uttered the words, hit the like button, smash the like button. We've never been beggars here. We always wanted to deliver value content that can help you, but also entertain you while you may be doing yard work, or maybe you should be doing your real job, but you got this on in the background, and hopefully we're entertaining enough to take you away from your real job sometimes. And so it makes me proud that this year we've grown our numbers, and it means that we have a lot of support, and we appreciate that support. And maybe by the time this video is posted, we'll have hit 300, which is a great movie, by the way. Great movie. So we're just happy to have you guys listening to us, and we're thinking of something to do for the 1,000th subscriber. Maybe we'll do something giveaway. Who knows what we'll do? But we're gonna get there. Hopefully this year. If not, no big deal. We're gonna continue doing what we like to do. Let's bring it into some things that can help you. And I'm happy to say, and I hope there's a lot of listeners out there who feel the same, that we are in a buyer's market right now. It's a good day. We're in until I have to sell. But right now, it's a good day. We're in a buyer's market.
Overall, I would definitely say we have steered in that direction. It's more of a balanced market overall, buyer's market and mini markets. So you are correct. Buyers finally have their day. But up until the point where interest rates might fall at some later point in the near future or next year, it might go back and swing towards the seller's market.
Homes are selling below list price. That's bad for sellers, good for buyers. I saw something, according to USA Today, Redfin found that fewer than one third of homes, 32%, sold over list price in the 4 weeks ending in June 23. That is the lowest quotient for late spring since 2020, when the pandemic bobbled the housing market in a good way, in my opinion.
Big news.
So 2/3 of homes selling below list price. What does that mean for someone listening that, owns a property, or someone listening that wants to own a property? Is it a good time or a bad time for either? Or as the realtor, is your message buy, no matter what?
It's always been buy when it's right for you, but sellers really need to get in the gear and understand I need to price my home at market value or slightly below market value, because if things turn a little bit more into, let's call it a buyer's market, then at that point, if you were to list at slightly below market value, you're going to be caught up at the time prices do fall down further. So you will not be sitting on the market because you're already priced accurately, and you're going to have more likelihood of someone to come to the home and submit an offer rather than submitting at market value, or worst case above market value. It's going to sit. And that's why we're seeing home prices not going above list price, because a lot of people have gotten so used to, constantly listing higher than it probably should, and they still get bites on it because it's been so competitive. And now things have turned a bit because interest rates have been so high for such a long time now.
Interesting. So still case by case.
Always case by case, always.
That's true. Do you think that, let's say, I know I'm going to have to move in 6 months. I know that, for example, what if I'm in the military and I know my orders are up and I'm going to be going somewhere else, right? Do you think it'd be better to wait a little bit to, shake hands, or do you think it's going to get worse as a seller? If you had to guess.
Loaded question, but what market are we talking about?
Right?
What market are you, like, what area are we talking about?
San Diego.
If you have the opportunity to wait a little bit and see, my advice, if you have the ability to wait, is to, it's kind of hard to say because August is still summer and you want to list during the summer. But in this case, maybe wait till like end of August or the very first week of September, because when the Fed funds do cut rates, more than likely, as they insinuated today, then
we'll talk about that in a second.
It should show that mortgage rates will come down. Well, what I'm saying is in September, they're supposed to cut rates. So that might mean
you're blowing
more
the
buyers
will
come to the table because interest rates. What do you mean, dude? You asked me a question. I'm giving you advice.
That's the next segment. You're giving it away. But no, great answer. Very cautious answer. And I do respect that, because you don't want to steer anybody wrong. And so that's great. It's good to have at least one person on the show who doesn't want to steer someone wrong. I have no problem with it. I'll be the guy. But no, great answer.
Yeah, and I know we'll get more views if I said some outlandish stuff. But at
like if you looked at the camera sternly and you were like, "Sell now, everything is falling apart," like it might get a lot of views.
Right. That would get a lot of views, dude.
But
it probably would backfire on my profession.
You'd be a hack,
right?
You know what I mean? So, and you're not. So, shout out to you for that.
No.
The Federal Reserve met again, and they're supposed to meet September 17th, and a lot of people are under the impression that they're going to cut the rates. We don't really know how much they're going to cut them by. I would like to hear your opinion on how much you think they're going to cut them by. And before you do, I just wanted to point out that Sway and Nick were wrong in our previous episode, not that long ago, probably a month ago. They said it's not going to happen until 2025, maybe February, maybe March, maybe December 25. I just made that part up. But we were right. I think you predicted September. I predicted October. These guys are loonies. I knew no way this election happens without them dropping. That's just my experience with this sort of thing.
I agree. I think you and I are likely going to be right. We still won't know until September comes around, but more than likely it's going to be the case that the Fed will cut rates by 25 to 50 basis points. And a lot of the reason being is they're seeing the inflation data come down a little bit, and that's making the Fed happy. And therefore they're seeing that 2% that they've been looking for inflation to come down. That's what they're aiming for. Once it hits that or gets close to it, that's when they're saying they're going to cut rates. And it appears we're kind of getting there. The PCE index for inflation, personal consumption expenditure is, I think, at 2.5 or 2.6%. So it's steadily getting to that 2% that we need to get at for the Fed to feel comfortable to lower the interest rates.
Well, that was a great breakdown. You have all these numbers in your head. The only thing you did not comment on is Sway and, of course, Nick's prediction.
I'm trying to be cordial with them, but Nick gets a little sensitive if I say anything, and Sway he can take it. He can take it on the chest,
All right. So next up, and this is going to be another dig at Sway, by the way, but in a different way.
Okay, this is
who we love. Okay. Who we love. We love Sway. Don't get me wrong. But still, it's all in fun. This one, this is a story I find really interesting, and I haven't shared it yet. But if you've been following the GameStop since 2020, 2019, really it was February 2020, I think, when kind of obviously something else kicked off. But I was deep into it at that time. I was invested, and am currently invested in GameStop as well. But there was this short seller, Andrew Left, and he's known for Citron Capital. They've been charged by the SEC and the DOJ. And it's a very interesting story because these were kind of the evil empire in the GameStop story. On one side, you had Roaring Kitty. He was this guy who realized, he was a very savvy financial guy who realized that stocks were being intentionally shorted, and they were influencing the market in a kind of a corrupt way to force businesses to go down to make money. And he realized that it was being overshorted, and all he had to do to take advantage of it was to start putting a lot of money into it. And he raised this entire, almost like a cult. And I was part of that cult. And it's not really like a real legit cult. It was just we all wanted to see GameStop go up for whatever reason. We were just happy. It was for the memes, the meme stocks, right? And one of them had already got so deep in their short sell, Melvin Capital, that they had been shut down, completely wiped out. Andrew Left and Citron Capital were actually okay. They made it out of that. But now I'll present. But what they're being charged with by the SEC is basically sending out a newsletter and telling everyone that listened to their advice, hey, buy this stock. This one's looking good. And then shortly thereafter, after everyone had kind of bought on and the stock had moved an average of 12% up, then they would flip their positions and bet against it because they knowingly increased the value unorganically. And that's what they're being charged with right now. This is just a civil suit, but the door is open for criminal charges on this. So, this is a good quote right here. Left allegedly bragged to his colleagues, per the complaint, that the scheme was akin to taking candy from a baby. And we've all loved the movie Wolf of Wall Street, but look, that movie had a lot of great actors in it. The truth of the matter is, even though we love those characters and we love the comedy in that, there were still people at home that were losing their money, their savings. Marriages probably were dissolved. There was real victims in the Wolf of Wall Street, even though it's a great movie. But anyways, what's your take on this, Andrew?
So Andrew Left, was he friends and worked together with that Kitty guy?
No. Oh, so okay. So no. Andrew Left was just another guy at a firm that was short selling stocks. All right. There was a lot of big players in this, right? There was a lot of companies that were intentionally. Melvin Capital is one of them. Like I said, they're no longer around, right? But
okay.
There was a lot of these big.
Andrew Left was contrary to what the Kitty guy did.
Yes,
the Kitty guy wanted everyone to buy GameStop.
Roaring Kitty saw what everyone was doing and realized that he could really put them in a damaging position by buying a ton of the stock because they had over short sold on it. I don't think that's the proper terminology, but they were too high in this position that all he had to do was buy more of it and keep buying more. And he created a really big Reddit following in a community called Wall Street Bets. And everybody was like, wait, all we have to do. And he made a lot of good YouTube videos about it, explaining his positions. He went to Congress, and it seemed like they were going to try to go after him, but he was I would say that he was a great representation of what you should be at Congress, in the sense that he didn't give him any bait to go after. His position was, I just like the stock. That's why I'm buying it. And that really prevented anything bad from happening to him. And now the SEC is pointing its lasers at the people that were his original target. Very masterful move. And it's very interesting to see the bigwigs being taken down.
You got it. I understand now.
One of the quote unquote, look, let's pretend this is like a fictional movie, even though it's real. One of the quote unquote villains that a lot of people saw was Steve Cohen, who I think he's also the owner, I'm going to probably get this wrong, of the New York Jets. He also had stake in Robinhood, or at least the firm that kind of was the financial backer, if I'm not mistaken, of Robinhood. And the biggest controversy of this whole thing is everyone that bought stock was all of a sudden not able to sell or buy GameStop stock anymore. Yeah. And so there's a lot of villains and stuff in this story, quote unquote, right? But this is one of them. Andrew left. And you know what's interesting is this entire story that I just told you about GameStop. None of that is actually part of the suit, the GameStop portion of it. Oh, this is a great quote, by the way. So whenever his firm finally abandoned its GameStop short position, following another rally, which, by the way, Sway got me in on, and more on that later. But he says, we respect the market.
Dude. I was laughing when you guys decided to go.
He said, we respect the market's irrationality, adding that the Roaring Kitty saga is an insult to the capital markets. And I would say I disagree. You can't really pitch the idea that we have a free market if these large institutions can leave out the little man. The whole point of the free market is that the little man can rise up. And Roaring Kitty exposed that. So I disagree with that statement. It's not an insult to the capital markets. It's exactly what was intended originally for the free market, in my opinion. That's my opinion, though. It doesn't mean much. There's a lot of people who believe that, though.
Right. Okay. Well, I kind of understand this now, what you're saying.
Yeah. So this is what he left his charge with: 1 count of engaging in a securities fraud scheme, 17 counts of securities fraud, and 1 count of making false statements to federal investigators. If convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison on the security fraud scheme count, 20 years in prison on each security fraud count, and 5 years in prison on false statements count. So what do you think about all of this? As someone who's kind of...
Let's move on to the next story. This is too boring now.
Are you serious?
Sorry.
All right, well, I promise you, and look, I promise you, if you tag this with GameStop, there will be people who watch it who do understand what's going on. You know,
I bet.
So they're actually, so here's the next story. The next story, I think, is a good story to talk about, and it's a cautionary tale. And I fell for it. I shouldn't have fallen for it. And I think it's important for people to hear this as a reminder. They probably already thought about this, but I had a GameStop stock for a while, right? And I sold it, made profit. And then, you know, in our chat, Sway, he sent us a chat saying GameStop's back. It's rising again, something like that, right? And me, without doing any research, he mentioned Roaring Kitty. He said all the right words to me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go buy some stock. Then it started to go down a little bit. The boat got a little wobbly, and Sway jumped out of the raft, you know, or jumped out of the boat into the life raft.
He didn't tell you guys.
And he kind of told me after the fact. I thought we were going to the moon with this thing, you know? And now I still have GameStop positions.
No.
And I am hoping that it's going to work out because it now looks like Roaring Kitty has enough stock to join the actual board of GameStop. And that would be a very interesting spectacle. But I was just disappointed because Sway really convinced me to get on this train. And then he jumped out so quickly. But also I respect Sway for that, by the way, because
he jumped out without telling you though, right? He jumped out.
So I will say that it wasn't after the fact thing. Yes, it was after the fact. He jumped out. I want to say he wasn't even proactive in telling us. Like he just kind of mentioned it when I was talking about it the next day. And I felt like a little betrayed.
I know, dude.
Like, damn, you got me hyped up for something and then you just bailed. I feel like you should either
I totally ignored that chat. Sorry, I said I totally ignored that chat when he was saying that. I didn't even respond because I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to invest in GameStop, like with all that background story of what happened in like 21, 22 or whatever that this took place. I like investing in companies that have some sense of track record of profit or revenue, consistent revenue. And then when he said that, I was like, I'm going to ignore that. And then you guys all fell for it. I feel bad for you, two victims.
You say fell for it. Hey, you say fell for it. The truth is, you didn't know what he meant when he said Roaring Kitty, right?
Yes, I did. I watched the movie too. Trust me, I know what you're talking about.
What do you mean you watched the movie too? What do you mean you watched the movie too? I never watched that movie because that movie was about me. That was about millions of me. So I never watched it. I know the real story.
Right, and you guys were right. You guys were right. You guys were right then at that time in a way because you guys.
I think we're still right. Honestly, and this is not financial advice to anybody.
I don't know,
but I think we're still right. That's my stance. But that's me personally. I don't want anybody to go buy any stock. I think we're still right. I'm still strong. I'm just saying. Hey, look, if you're going to tell your friends about a financial offer, first of all, it better not be a pyramid scheme, which it wasn't in this case. But second of all, you got to keep them up to date on your position, like if you're going to jump out the boat, don't just bail and don't tell anybody, but anyways, it's all good. I'm still happy with it. What do you think about poly markets? Do you know about poly markets?
No. What is that?
Poly markets is kind of a new thing. All right. One thing it's great at is predicting events. So poly markets, what it is it's called a prediction market. All right. But what it really is
this new?
Yeah. And I'm engaged with it. But I'll show it to you. I'm going to share the screen. This is actually really cool. So what poly markets is, this should tell you everything about it right here. All right. Who's going to be the nominee? Now,
for the Democrat Party.
Do you see this 3-letter word right here?
Yeah.
So it's using crypto, USDC, which is it mirrors the United States dollar's value, to bet, right? And you see it's at 71%. If you were to put $1 down and this were to win, you would win 71 cents. And what it's become is a great predictor of things to come. Because what's the phrase you've heard your whole life? Put your money where your mouth is. That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Put your money where your mouth is, right? So let's see how much money is
in gamification.
Yep. And let's see how much money. It normally tells you how much money is view more. Like -1% right here, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Look, there's literally $463 million that have been placed on this bet. What's interesting is I looked at this market last night. For the longest time, Mark Kelly was leading. He was like 40%. Josh Shapiro was 20%. And I did invest in Josh Shapiro. In fact, I invested in Mark Kelly too. But last night I looked at this and I noticed Josh Shapiro went from 20 to 40. And I saw Mark Kelly went down to 30. Now he's down to 8%. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And I went on Twitter. Mark Kelly, Kamala Harris plans on Tuesday to reveal her VP pick in Pennsylvania, which is Josh Shapiro's the governor. And that was last night at 10:30. Now that went from 40% to 71%. So very interesting tool. I think this is an interesting tool because it's not only this, you can pop culture, obviously sports, which comes with everything. What's weird is like science. Like what kind of science are we predicting over here? 2024, July, hottest on record. Like just wild bets, you know what I mean? GPT-5 release. Like honestly, it's kind of entertaining. And I'll tell you why. Most people aren't going to be that excited whenever the VP of the Democratic Party, of any party, really is going to be announced, right? If you have money riding, that's a fun time. But anyways, I'd share that with you. What do you think about that?
No, it's pretty cool. I like this. This is very entertaining. Gamification for sure. I wonder how many people do participate in terms of the population in the U.S., especially when it comes to politics. And then to see also like how intertwined X is, Twitter, with this, to see if people are like tweeting their bets. That would be interesting to see. I've heard of some stuff like this before, but never been on the site necessarily, except maybe one time that I already forgot the name of the website, but maybe it was Polymarket.
Right.
But it's good to see what people are thinking and the Vegas odds, I guess, right? So it looks like a presidential election popular vote winner in 2024, according to Polymarket, is Kamala Harris. Interesting. Very interesting.
Which is not surprising. That's not surprising. But I do want to key in on something you just said. It would be good to know how many Americans vote for this. And I think that's an important thing you said, because we'll never know the answer. Because the only way an American can play in this market is if they have a VPN and their country is somewhere out of America. That's the one thing that about this is it's technically not, they don't allow you, if you're American, to participate in this because of legal reasons. So the only way
in America you can't bet on this? You...
Correct. Unless you have a VPN.
Oh. I thought you just said you bet on something though.
Unless you have a VPN.
Okay, got it. All right.
Unless you have a VPN, But anyways, it's not that it's illegal. It's they don't want to deal with the U.S. Regulatory Commission. They're avoiding that. So it's not illegal for an American to do this. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think, I don't know. It's just
what is now that we're on this topic, what is your thoughts on, why don't we talk about the whole Trump and Kamala Harris election, how that is affecting the financial markets? Because I found some interesting things when it came to the assassination attempt and then the Kamala Harris being chosen as the Democrat president nominee.
And you're asking this question in relation to the housing market?
And the financial market. It's just
financial.
I guess it's good for the audience to know and for everyone to know that how crazy intertwined everything really is and how everything spills over and affects other things and multiple things. So people say the elections don't matter in their life, maybe not, but when it comes to making a financial decision, it definitely does. I think like every 4 years when a presidential election happens, things get a little bit volatile. And it's just very interesting to see how that works. So, for example, I wrote some things down from doing some math. The assassination attempt on Trump was on July 13th, Saturday. The Dow Jones was at 40,000 on July 12th, that Friday. By Tuesday, when things got set in, the Dow Jones, now that we found out that he survived and everything was okay with him, was at 40,954 points. So it increased about 2.39% when the market realized he didn't die, right? Kamala Harris being on the 23rd is when she got the nomination. The market was at 40,415 points. Once it set in that she's now the Democrat, I keep almost saying vice president, the Democrat nominee, it fell to 39,853 points. So the market fell by 1.39% in the Dow Jones. And it's interesting to see how, like, when I open up graphs when it comes to real estate, every 4 years we tend to see towards the tail end of that election year, we see home prices dip because people get concerned of what's going to happen next. Buyers start to hold out.
Yeah. Obviously the market goes up and down, but typically, traditionally, just keeps going at this angle over time. And I think you could see I think that we know that there are these really wealthy investors that know if somebody from the GOP side is going to be elected, there's going to be a lot more flexibility for them, a lot less, less taxes for them, right? So I think that naturally is going to just it's going to be better financially for anyone in any market, in the markets by itself. Of course, policy over the 4 years has to sustain that. Now I look back on to February 2020 when we know that news was broken and there was like this period of hesitation. The market really didn't know what to think. The market had no idea what to think. Like, this is probably going to be really bad. Is this 2008 again? And the market reacted. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't driven from the top down. It was almost driven from the down up. There was a response of people doing house projects. There was obviously involvement by the government to give everybody a little bit more freedom. So there was that. And then there's the stimmies that everybody knows about. And so it was a little bit of that, but the market reacted in a way that a lot of people had no idea was about to happen. There was this huge boom. So it's really hard for me to predict that, but it just makes logical sense that there's going to be billionaires that see this obvious and this corporate tax burden is going to go away. It's going to go up. And if it's sustained, it's because there's policies in place that sustain it. And obviously what goes up must go a little bit down at least. And so it's going to happen. What do you think about that?
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's just that's why it matters so much, because these policies, as you mentioned about the capital gains, those policies will go through more than likely if that particular person behind that policy, in this case now Kamala, if she is to run with that policy, it'll affect the financial markets and the real estate markets. And that's what, a lot of homeowners, home investors, or investors in real estate and other means of stocks and bonds or whatever are taking into consideration. And that's something to keep in mind when you're out there looking for a home or looking to sell a home, how the elections will make it a volatile place for you. And it's always something that I always tend to tell my clients. Like the other day, I was recently with a client. He was asking me, why all of a sudden our home prices, I'm noticing they're dipping. And I told him it's the election. And I even showed him this graph. I don't know how easy it is to see, but let me try and zoom in. 1 second.
Yeah, the text is a little small.
Yeah, it's a little too small. Maybe I could do some overhead of some sort. I'll have to do that. But basically, it shows in the graph how the market is kind of going up, but when the elections come, we start to see that market dip once we're in that year. And it just, I backtracked to from 1996 or something, and I tend to see almost every single time, every neighborhood practically, when the election's happening, the market dips a bit in that year. So in this case, 2024, we've seen prices dip. In 2028, it's probably going to happen again. We're going to see home prices dip again. So it just happens to be the case. I'm not saying it always happens, but it tends to happen very often than not.
That's interesting. I'm glad you did that research. I mean, obviously it's important for your career prospects, but that's interesting you shared that with us. I haven't done any research on the market based on who's president. I guess I'm going more with a feel, particularly because this election's a little unique in that we both know quite a bit about both candidates because we've been exposed to them as in the executive branch for at least, for 4 years each, right? So we kind of have an idea of where they're going to go with things. It is possible that the vice president is completely different but I just tend to disagree with that because I don't know if there's going to be a huge shakeup in the staff. I don't know if she's going to say, you keep your job, you got to go. You got to go. I don't know if she's going to do all that. To me, it almost feels like we know exactly what both admins are bringing to the table.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, let me put it like this. I think most people feel, including the people that could be optimistic about the market or pessimistic, think we know they think that most people think that they know what's to come, right?
Yeah, maybe. Right. I
think it's a more logical thing. But anyways, but who knows? Maybe both of them have radically different next terms. So that's also there too.
Doubtful, but maybe.
There's been a lot to learn from, and I think that as the average taxpayer, we don't really see that learning part too much, except for in our own lives. Mm-hmm. Stay humble, but committed. What's going on with you?
Not much, dude. Just grinding away. Trying to catch baseball, but I haven't been able to watch baseball games since like June 4th. I think is the last time I really watched the baseball game and kept up with the data. So I feel a little bit down on myself that I haven't done that, especially for the Full Count podcast, since we do two different shows. One with this one where we talk about more real estate centric and current events centric. And then another one where Sway kind of takes over that one and talks about baseball stats and data. But I haven't been able to keep up as much as I'd like due to work. So hopefully with time, I can get back into the swing of things and go full steam into baseball again. And also, dude, as I don't think you were here during that time of the podcast, but we would also predict where baseball players are going to buy and the size of the home in terms of price, things like that too, based on their trades. We've seen some trades go through for the Dodgers that just happened and the Yankees. So it would be interesting if maybe on the next podcast we could do some predictions of that sort. It would be good.
I'm sorry, did you say you don't know if I was here during that?
Yeah, I don't think we did too many. No, I know you were here. I think you were here for the Chris Sale one. But
I only made all of the right predictions.
What's that?
I only made all of the right predictions. So I don't know how I wasn't here. Is that how you cope at night? Is that what's going on here?
Maybe that's how I cope. I do recall actually now that you did predict on some. Yeah, I take that back.
Like all of them.
But why haven't we done them again recently?
No, that's a good point. The good thing is we are getting into the good time of baseball where games start to matter a lot, right? And big shout out San Diego Padres taking down Sway's Dodgers. Great game, as the Full Count channel pointed out. Great game. I know Sway agrees with that. He really appreciates. That's one thing I have a lot of respect for Sway about is he does call balls and strikes like he sees them. As a Dodgers fan, he's not the stereotypical Dodgers fan in the sense that he enjoys a good close match between the Padres and Dodgers, regardless of who wins. And that's more admirable than me because I just want the dub. He likes a good game, and I respect that about him. But great matchups. Obviously, they're still leading in the standings by what? I think 7 now, something like that. And it's kind of demoralizing as a Padres fan because we're number 2, and I look at the other divisions which are struggling majorly, and we could be a competitor. We could be the leader in some of those divisions. You know what I mean? It just sucks. We got the Dodgers in our division. They're always that big brother that keeps swinging that baseball bat at us. But hey, I just want to say this too. Things were not looking good for us in preseason. We sent some players, shipped them off, and I thought that since our great owner had passed away who was so enthusiastic in San Diego that the Padres were just, just giving up on everything. But no, that's not the case. They have not given up, and I respect that.
It's pretty good.
You're right, though. And I think we need to start following it more closely. I've been busy, too. I think, so for me right now, these Olympic Games, they're great. And they're great in a way that all of these folks from like these diverse folks from the United States, proudly representing the United States of America. It just makes me feel so happy. Like it's the opposite of people not being proud of America. They're on a global stage. Like the things that they're saying in these interviews, we're just so happy to be representing the United States. It's such a good feeling.
That's great to hear. I have not watched any games. I should watch some, but I would like to see a couple, especially like the swimming and the racing and the running.
That's because ABC doesn't cover it. NBC does.
NBC covers it. No, I'd rather watch baseball though, to be honest with you. When is baseball going to be in the Olympics though? The next one?
Yeah, it is going to be the next one. But by the way, have you ever watched rugby before?
Once, but I heard that the women's rugby is insane. The USA team.
Well,
I heard that's
new. They got the bronze, but they got the bronze in rugby sevens, which is actually just an amazing sport to watch. But I've been watching everything that's thrown my way, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, these Olympic Games, they've been supreme. They've been great. And I would encourage you, while you're working in your office in LA, somebody put the Olympics games in the background while you guys are busy. Yeah. Every once in a while, you're going to get up and you're going to like, wow, USA on biking or something. Every once in a while, it's going to provide you with some good competitive spirit.
Okay. Yeah. I saw that remember the whole opening to the Olympics? That was weird.
You know what? It's unfortunate that overshadowed everything.
Yeah.
Because that was one moment. And then the rest of it has been amazing. It's been great. It's been great sportsmanship from each country. Haven't really seen a lot of salty moments. It's unfortunate that any sort of thing like that has to overshadow these events because, and look, I have no idea what to make of all that, to be honest with you. It's just silly stuff. What's real is these athletes training their whole lives, competing against each other and competing for their country, which is what this whole thing's about. And it's passionate and it's great.
Let's just say if the athletes were in charge of the opening ceremony or whatever you call that happened, I don't think they would have done that. I think they would have stuck to like sports, camaraderie, something beautiful about parents.
The opening ceremony is the only thing about the Olympics that is not about sports.
Right. And that's the problem, probably.
But you know what was cool about, there is one thing that was really cool about the opening ceremony was everyone on these river boats being rained on as they passed by. Like that was a cool moment. Like I don't know if you saw that picture of
American flag people.
What's up?
There was people on a boat with the American flag, I think.
Did you see the picture of that compared to George Washington's photo?
I did see like a meme of some sort. I didn't get to like look at it long enough. I kind of scrolled right through it, but I saw something.
Yeah. Okay. So
bring that up.
I didn't find the exact meme, but it's okay. We have Google Images to help us out with this. So this is LeBron and the rest of the USA team holding this flag. Let me visit it. Right? Crazy. And then this is George Washington, Delaware River.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like completely overshadowed by what you're talking about was this awesome moment. Right?
Right.
Like that is awesome. That is just amazing.
And that was in the background of that.
No, so during the ceremony, they would have these so the entire time there was these boats going by and they were filled with people of each different country. There'd be a lot of times there'd be like 3 countries per boat. I think the US had its own boat. And they were going down a canal. And
got it.
In between those moments, there was cinematic events, these theatric events where there'd be dancing and heavy metal bands, and they would play that, right? And those were all kind of like pre-recorded things. This part wasn't pre-recorded. It was the people going through the riverboats. And it was really cool. One mistake was they called South Korea North Korea. That was controversial.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a cool moment. And so you see this photo of LeBron proudly holding the American flag. It's great for the country. I love that. And then you got George Washington down in Delaware. Obviously amazing for the country. Anyways, thanks everybody for joining us in this great episode. I hope you had fun.
Episode 40. Episode 40. So we're getting there. We haven't even hit 50. I heard when you hit 100, that's when things get going. So let's see when we get to 100. But 50 for now. We're at 40. So we got a ways away.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that we're only at 40.
It's really not much, dude.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I think once we get to 1,000 subs, boom. Once we make it in someone's algorithm with 1,000 subs, they take it seriously.
Yep. I agree. Glad everybody got to watch or listen, depending on what you're doing, on whether you're commuting to work or you're gardening, working out, whatever it may be. Thank you for staying with us at Full Count Podcast. We love being here, talking to you.